there is a very specific feeling that I think almost everyone listening has probably experienced.
Mm.
It's that tightness in your chest when you drive your car into the service bay.
Oh, yeah.
It's making noise you've never heard before, or even just, walking onto a showroom floor to look at a new model.
The grudge purchase anxiety.
It is. It's visceral.
Yeah.
My palms get sweaty.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the notes for our conversation today, and I realized why we feel that. It's not just that cars are expensive.
No, it's deeper than that.
It's that we feel like we are entering a hostile environment where we're the underdog. We don't know the mechanics, we don't know the salespeople, and we assume
Rightly or wrongly.
that the goal is to extract as much money from us as possible.
That's exactly it. It's a high-friction environment, and the research we're analyzing today argues that this friction exists primarily because of one missing ingredient.
And what's that?
Familiarity.
Familiarity. That sounds almost, I don't know, too simple.
It sounds simple, but it's the psychological key to the whole thing. When you don't know the person across the desk, you default to suspicion.
You're on guard.
Exactly. And in the auto world, that lack of familiarity is the silent killer of deals. It tanks customer satisfaction, it lengthens the sales cycle, and it makes every negotiation feel like a battle.
So today we're unpacking a strategy that claims to solve this. And I want to be clear up front. This isn't about running better Facebook ads or...
putting up a bigger inflatable man outside the lot.
Please, no more inflatable men. We are talking about why every single automotive dealership needs to be running a video podcast.
And not as a hobby project. We're analyzing this as a serious asset strategy, a way to build what we're calling a trust engine.
A trust engine. I like that.
Right. And the core thesis here is fascinating. It basically says, stop trying to persuade people. Persuasion is the old model. Modern trust, the kind that actually moves metal in this economy, it's built through familiarity.
So you're creating a relationship before the transaction even starts.
It's a relationship supply chain. The customer feels like they know you before they even park their car.
But I have to play the skeptic for a second, because when I talk to dealer principals, they're overwhelmed.
Of course.
They're trying to move inventory, manage staff, deal with OEM targets. And now we're saying, hey, you also need to be a media company. Why video? And why now?
It's a fair pushback, but the why comes down to how our brains process trust. The data shows that video builds trust way faster than text or audio alone.
Why is that?
We're visual creatures. We need to see the eyes, the micro expressions, the body language to decide if someone is safe.
So it's almost biological. We need to see the face to trust the voice.
It is.
Yeah.
But there's a business case, too. Video does three things. First, it accelerates that familiarity we talked about.
Right.
Second, it makes complex things like balloon payments or transmission rebuilds feel simple. And third, and this is the one the accountants love, it creates an endless repurposing pipeline. You film once, you have marketing assets for a month.
I want to stick on that familiarity point for a moment, because in the prep for this, one example kept coming up as the North Star for this kind of thing.
It had to be Top Gear.
Of course. The gold standard. You can't talk about automotive content without Clarkson, Hammond, and May.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. I watch Top Gear religiously. I wasn't in the market for a Bugatti. I couldn't afford the insurance on a Bugatti.
But you tuned in every single week.
Every week. Why was that?
Well, you tell me, was it the specs? The 0 to 60 times?
No. It wasn't the cars. It was the guys. It was the chemistry.
Exactly. It was a parasocial relationship. You felt like you knew them. You knew Clarkson was going to be loud and opinionated. You knew May was going to be obsessive about the details.
That consistency created comfort. You weren't watching a car review. You were hanging out with people you knew.
And that's the principle. We're not saying the local Ford dealership needs to find a Jeremy Clarkson.
That sounds like an HR nightmare waiting to happen.
Right. We don't need the lawsuits. But they need to create that same familiarity effect. Imagine a customer has been watching a dealership's YouTube series for 3 months.
Okay.
They've seen the sales manager, let's call him David, talking about trade-in values. They've seen the master mechanic explaining why oil changes matter.
They've seen his face. They've heard his voice. They know how he thinks.
Correct. So when that customer finally decides, okay, I'm ready to buy, and they walk onto the lot and they see David,
The anxiety just drops.
0. He isn't a stranger trying to rip them off. He's David from the video. The whole dynamic shifts from confrontation to cooperation instantly.
It's like a celebrity effect, but on a hyper-local scale.
That's a perfect way to put it. You are hacking the social brain to bypass the stranger danger reflex.
Okay, but Top Gear had a BBC budget. There were crashing caravans and racing helicopters. Most dealerships I know have a smartphone and a very busy showroom. How do they bridge that gap?
That is the #1 misconception. You don't need the helicopters. In fact, sometimes that high production value can feel less trustworthy.
Because it looks like a commercial.
Exactly. What you need is the infrastructure of consistency. You need to treat this as a business asset, not a creative art project.
So it's about workflow, not lighting grids.
100%. And this is where the strategy often falls apart. A dealer principal tells his top salesperson, hey, go make some TikToks. But that person's job is to sell cars, not edit video.
I've seen that happen a dozen times. The Ghost Town YouTube channel where the last video was posted 3 years ago.
Exactly. You need a partner. This is the gap that companies like Team Africa fill. Their model is interesting because they act as that support layer. The dealership provides the talent and the expertise.
And the partner handles the production.
All the messy stuff, the recording, the editing, the distribution, so the mechanic can just be a mechanic.
Right. Let's move from the theory to the practice.
Yeah.
A dealership has two very different sides of the house. You've got service and you've got sales.
The back end and the front end. And the trust issues are different in both.
Very different. Let's start with the back of the house, the service department. To me, this is the black box. I drop my keys, I drink some bad coffee, and then I get a bill that makes me want to cry.
We fix that by applying the rule. Make complexity feel simple. Let's look at our second case study. Imagine a dealership produces an episode about a massive repair. Let's say a 500,000 Rand major service on a high-end SUV.
That is a scary number.
Yeah.
If I see 500,000 Rand on an invoice, I'm immediately thinking I'm being scammed.
Naturally, because you only see the total, you don't see the work.
Well,
But imagine the master mechanic puts that car on the lift, turns the camera on, and actually walks you through it.
okay.
He shows you the stripped-down engine. He says, look at the seal. Here is why we have to replace it. If we don't, the engine seizes. Here's the labor. It takes 12 hours just to reach this bolt.
So instead of just a bill, I'm getting an education.
You're getting a justification of value. You aren't hiding the cost. You are explaining the expertise. That builds immense authority. It changes the mechanic from an adversary to an advocate.
I'm doing this to keep you safe, not I'm doing this to buy a new boat.
And honestly, service managers are incredibly busy. They can't be stopping to film a dance trend for Instagram.
The mental image of that is haunting.
It's tragic. And that's where that external partner comes in again. If you have a team like Team Africa come in once a month, set up, capture that genius in 45 minutes, and leave, that is sustainable. The mechanic feels respected, not distracted.
Okay, let's flip to the front of the house. The showroom, sales. The dynamic here is different because the customer often thinks they know more than the dealer.
Ah, the internet expert.
Right. They've read one forum post and they come in with their arms crossed, ready to fight.
This is where we create the pre-educated buyer. This is our third case study.
Pre-educated by us, you mean?
By you, exactly. Imagine the dealership runs a series called the reality check. A new model launches. The sales manager sits down and does a brutally honest 20-minute breakdown. Here's who this car is actually for, and this is the kicker. Here's who shouldn't buy this car.
Who shouldn't buy it? That's
Yeah.
bold. Salespeople are trained to say this car is for everyone.
Which is why nobody trusts them. If a salesperson looks into the camera and says, if you do mostly city driving with 3 kids, do not buy this 2-door sports model, buy this one instead, I immediately believe him.
It's the damaging admission. You're honest about the negatives, so I believe you about the positives.
It's a shortcut to trust. So now the customer arrives having watched that video. They aren't grilling you to see if you're a liar. They're asking you to confirm what you've already told them.
You've moved the moment of decision from the showroom floor to their living room couch.
And the scale of that is massive. A salesperson can have that conversation maybe 3 times a day. A video can have it with 500 people while the dealership is closed.
So we've covered the why and the what. But how does this become a marketing supply chain, as you called it?
It's industrial. It has to be. The biggest mistake dealerships make is thinking they need a separate strategy for TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and their blog.
It sounds exhausting just listing them.
It's impossible. But the video podcast acts as a multiplier effect. Picture a content waterfall. You record one 45-minute discussion.
Just one session.
That's your raw material. From that single heavy rock, you chip away the gold. You extract 8 to 12 short vertical clips for Instagram Reels and TikTok.
So your social media calendar is full for 2 weeks from 1 hour of work.
Correct. Then you take the transcript, Turn that into a blog post for your website. That's your SEO. You pull the best quotes for graphic cards. You strip the audio for Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
So you aren't creating 10 things. You're creating one high-value thing and slicing it up.
You're creating a full marketing ecosystem from 1 hour of executive time. But, and this is, the catch repurposing isn't accidental. It doesn't just happen.
Right, someone still has to do the slicing.
And that's usually where the system breaks. This is why you need a system. Tim Africa, for example, focuses heavily on this pack concept. They don't just hand you a raw video. They turn that single episode into the full distributed pack. Because if you film it and nobody sees it, it's worthless.
That's a key point. It's the difference between filming and publishing.
Without a doubt.
Now, I have to ask the question that every dealer principal is probably screaming into their radio right now.
Show me the money.
Yes. How do I measure this?
This is the 500,000 Rand question. And to answer it, we have to change how we look at the dealership's balance sheet.
Bring on.
A dealership could easily burn 500,000 Rands a year on traditional ads, billboards, radio spots.
Easily.
And what happens to that billboard the moment you stop paying the monthly fee?
They tear it down, it's gone.
It vanishes. Your equity hits zero. That's renting attention. Now, compare that to investing 500,000 Rands into a video podcast series over a year. You are building a permanent library of assets.
Those videos don't disappear.
Never. They are still working for you in year 2, year 3. A video explaining how to finance a used Backy will still be relevant 5 years from now. You're building an asset, not renting space.
It's the difference between paying rent and paying a mortgage.
Exactly. But you're right about measurement. Views are vanity. My mom watching the video is a view, but she's not buying a fleet of trucks.
So what do we track?
Decision influence. How long are people watching? Are they watching the whole 20 minutes? That shows deep intent. Are they clicking through to the inventory page afterwards? This is where dashboards matter. It's not about viral hits. It's about valuable hits.
So knowing names. Episode 4 drove 15 direct inquiries to the service desk.
That is the data that matters. And again, a partner like Tim Africa leans into that performance marketing layer. It has to be science, not just art.
If it doesn't make money, it's a hobby.
And we are not in the hobby business.
So if I'm a dealer principal listening and I'm nodding my head, I get it. Where do I start? Do I buy a fancy camera tomorrow?
No, absolutely not. That's the fastest way to fail. You start with a plan, not a purchase. You propose a pilot season.
A pilot. Low risk.
High reward. Commit to 6 episodes. And here's your concept for episode 1, the reality check. What people get wrong about. Insert your brand here.
Oh, I like that. What people get wrong about buying a used SUV.
Exactly. Cover the biggest misconceptions, discuss the real risks people ignore, explain what good actually looks like. You immediately position yourself as the honest broker in a market of sharks.
And consistency is the hardest part. The pilot is easy. The marathon is hard.
Which is why I keep coming back to the infrastructure. Whether it's an internal team or a partner like Tim Africa, you need a machine that keeps the engine running: distribution, amplification, reporting.
You be the face. Let someone else be the hands.
That's a great way to put it. You focus on the message, let the infrastructure handle the mess.
We've covered a lot of ground here. If you had to boil this all down to one final thought for the dealers listening, what is it?
The question isn't whether video podcasts work. We know they work. The question is whether a dealership wants to be the most familiar, most trusted voice in their market, or if they want to keep explaining themselves from scratch every single time a customer walks in the door.
That's the choice, isn't it? Do you want to start every interaction at 0, or do you want to start at 50?
I'd rather start at 50. Attention builds familiarity. Familiarity builds trust.
And trust drives decisions. And if you want to build that infrastructure, there is a clear path.
There is. If you want to turn this theory into an actual engine, connect with Tim Africa.
You can find them at www.tim.africa. That's tim.africa.
And check out their socials to see this repurposing in action. It's at tim.africa on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Familiarity beats persuasion every time. Thanks for walking us through the engine today.
Always a pleasure.
Till pictures, here we go. Ideas fast, started flow. Catch the vibe, catch the spark. Light it up, ignite the dark. Till pictures, with a big idea, switches. Podcasters, turn to the marketing riches. Plug it in, turn it loud. Build your brand, make it proud. Pitch it high, pitch it sweet. Performance game, can't be beat. Take pictures, with a big idea, switches. Podcasters, turn to the market. marketing riches.